This is Carrie Corbet-Owen from Bodywise Perfect Size with the second part of my interview with Ragen Chastain. I speak to so many people that are going to wait until they're thin before they live, but not you.
I went out on a date to a dance lesson, and the date ended up being a disaster, but the date's friend and I really hit it off, and he was like, oh, I've always wanted to take these dance lessons, and would you like to take them with me? And so we started taking these two-step lessons at this like local gay country bar, and then somebody said, oh, you guys are good, you should think about competing. And he and I are both ultra competitive, so we were like, oh, you can compete at this? So we went to a competition, got totally hooked, got a coach, and 3 months later we did our first competition. 3 months into coaching and we did our first competition, and we had been so focused on learning all these dances we needed to do that I honestly believed, not completely naively, that the judges would be judging my dancing. I did my first competition, and a judge came up to me and said, what, you're gonna lose weight, right? Because like, what a waste of talent at your size. And I was like, so taken aback. And I had another judge who said, I love your dancing, but I can't give you a better score until you lose weight because you're just no kind of role model. It took me a while to realize, like, I don't have to take this. And, my sort of big moment came as I was finishing up a competition. I was a few competitions in, and a judge came sort of rushing out while I was standing at the elevator, holding all my stuff, really tired. I had a cold. It's not a good day. And she said, we need to talk about your waltz. And I was like, oh, yeah, I had a bad day. And she said, no, that dress. And my dress was a beautiful black velvet dress with spaghetti straps and like red inlays, gorgeous. And so I was like, what? And she said, that dress, she said, I couldn't stand to look at you. And I had that moment of like, am I gonna like flip out on this person, or am I gonna like be calm and classy? So I was honestly just too tired to get into it. So I said, okay. And she said, I couldn't stand to look at you. She said it, and then she put her finger in my face and it was like with spittle. It was like, you have no business wearing spaghetti straps. And I was like, bing, this has nothing to do with me, right? Nobody gets this bent out of shape about spaghetti straps. And so I realized like, oh, this woman's trying to foist all of her body image issues on me, and I do not want them. And so I said, well, in honesty, I probably won't choose to change the dress, but I do appreciate you taking the time to tell me it's such a problem for you. That was my moment when I realized, I had been doing my own sort of personal size acceptance, my own personal health at every size. And that was a moment that I realized I wanted to be a fat dancer. And what I was going to have to do was be a fat activist to get that done. And it was really, I had done a lot of queer activism. I had done a lot of anti-racism work. I had done a lot of sort of anti-oppression work, but it had never occurred to me that fat people as a class were oppressed, even though the minute I had the thought, it was crystal clear. Because of our appearance, we get all of this terrible treatment. But it was that moment that crystallized it, and that was what got me started on really wanting to blog on Dances with Fat and really wanting to kind of share this journey and to do more activism around it.
Ragen, you've also written a book.
I wrote a book called Fat, the Owner's Manual. So basically, it was after I had been blogging for a while, and I sort of wanted, there are people who aren't blog people. And so I would go and give these talks and they'd be like, oh, do you have a book? And I'd be like, nobody have this blog. And they're like, oh, I don't really read blogs. And I was like, gotcha. So I ended up putting a lot of the work from my blogs into a book that I felt like would give people sort of a beginner level look at all of these things. It's sort of like, here's the 10 things that if you are stuck in the way that our current society believes, will start to blow your mind a little bit. Right, and here's some research about that, and here's some things you can do, and here's size acceptance and health at every size, and so to give people a little taste of it, and to have a book that for people was more digestible and easier to read. A couple of years ago, I was approached by Prager, which is an imprint of ABC Clio, to write an anthology, and it's called The Politics of Size, and so I edited that anthology, and it's a 2-volume anthology that you can get from Prager, and I'm really proud of it. It included a lot of really interesting voices and a lot of different perspectives, and I was really happy and excited to get to work with all those people. That was a joy. So
we've spoken about some of your trolls, but your following has grown enormously.
It's been really amazing to connect with people all around the world, and that's one of the things that the Fatosphere does, and not just with the people who follow me, but I've gotten to connect with my heroes, all of these amazing people who are doing work all over the world in fat acceptance and size acceptance. It's one of those sort of surreal things. When I did my marathon, I was running and somebody yelled, oh, I love your blog. And it completely made I was like, seriously, like, Thank you.
Tell me about some of the things you've done as a fat activist.
I was one of the keynote speakers for the Weight Stigma Conference last year, which was in Reykjavik in Iceland. It's been pretty amazing to get to be part of this community and to get to, have people who read what I write and who say, wow, that really made a difference in my life. That really made a change in my life. And, I get such heartbreaking emails. I'm thinking about harming myself. I'm thinking about, do I have to get a divorce? To be able to connect them with support and resources and say, this isn't you, right? The world is screwed up. You are fine, right? And let's figure out how we can do this. That has been, to me, like, I'm so honored to get to be part of people's lives in that way. And so I liked the job I did before. I really liked it, but this I love. This I'm passionate about. This I want to do forever.
Some weight loss methods are pretty scary.
So I talk a lot about how there's an eliminationist view of fat people and, that they're trying to eradicate fat people. And I get a lot of pushback like, oh, eradication is a big word. And I'm like, the number of times doctors have tried to get me to do something where one possible outcome was death. And they thought that was an acceptable risk because another possible outcome was being thin and saying, well, the benefits outweigh the risk if maybe you can have a smaller body. Those are different things. And I also think that it makes the world harder for people who do have these health issues, to be taken seriously alongside of, well, maybe it'll, cure your life-threatening C. diff, or maybe it'll make you thin. Like, who knows? Those aren't the same thing.
Of course, this presupposes that we even know what ideal weight really is, but that's been so meddled with, hasn't it?
When you start to look at the history, most people don't know that in 1998, a group of people, most of whom worked for diet industries, including the chief scientist for Weight Watchers, convinced the World Health Organization and the NIH to lower what was considered a healthy weight. So 25 million Americans became overweight literally overnight. On Tuesday, they were normal weight. On Wednesday, they were overweight. And newspapers ran headlines like, millions of Americans don't know they're overweight. And then there's the fact that when we look at, every time I see X% weight loss, which has been shown to have health benefits, I do that. Hey, that's bullshit, because I know that what happened was, the Metropolitan Life Insurance Company created these tables of like the best possible weight and health, weight and height ratios. And then doctors tried to get people to reach those ratios, but they were not successful in getting fat people to lose enough weight. So then they said, okay, well, we feel like 20% would create health benefits. This is not based on science or research. It's literally like a rectal poll number, like throws dart, 20%. So they couldn't get people to lose 20%. So they said, okay, 10%. Well, surely if you lose 10%. So then it was losing 10% of your body weight has been scientifically shown to have health benefits. Again, not scientific in any way. And then they couldn't get people to lose 10%. So they said, okay, 5%. We're going to go with 5%. Right? And then they did the IDEA study, which got people almost to 5%. And then it showed no health benefits, which is another piece that really blew my mind. There's not a study anywhere that actually looks at the health differences for people who have managed to lose weight and maintain that weight loss as compared to, say, people who stayed fat and practice health at every size, or people who stayed fat regardless of what they practice, right? It's just a guess that if we can make people thinner, then we will make them healthier, because body size is correlated with a bunch of health issues, which, again, correlation is not causation. It's the first, when I was in research class, they made us say it every single day at the beginning and ending of class. Correlation never, ever, never, ever, never, ever implies causation, right? But because of this idea that being fat is a risk factor, they say, well, we'll just take away that risk factor and make people thin. Even if that worked, we have literally no idea how to get it done, and we don't know that it will work. Men who have male pattern baldness have much higher rates of cardiac incidence, but getting those guys to grow hair will not prevent heart attacks. Right? But if we did that, like we've done weight loss, we would have a war on baldness. And we would be telling those guys, like, you've got to try harder to grow hair, dude, because your heart attacks are expensive. And we're tired of paying for lazy bald men's heart attacks because they won't grow hair. And here's some medicine that doesn't work, but take it. This medicine could kill you, but it's worth it because the hair growth. Like, this is ridiculous, but it's exactly what we do in weight loss. And that is really frustrating to me, because this is a whole scheme based on nothing, no more than hypotheses and research that proves it wrong. There aren't enough, people who have successfully maintained weight loss to even create a reasonable sample size, which should tell you something, and not like, I guess nobody can do it, right? Like, that's not actually the problem.
Ragen, what's your take-home message for everyone?
Because of the good fatty, bad fatty dichotomy, my work gets misconstrued, sometimes purposely by trolls, to say like, Ragen says that everybody should be healthy, or Ragen says that everybody should go do an Ironman. And that's not the thing at all. My thing is, people should be allowed to do whatever they want, right? Whether their thing is to go dancing, or whether their thing is to like knit tea cozies or watch every episode of Star Trek that ever existed. And so there's this thing within fat community called the good fatty, bad fatty dichotomy. And it's this idea that people who are good fatties and who do whatever you should do, right? So fat people who enjoy being involved in fitness, or fat people who eat a certain way that the person who's judging approves of, deserve to be somehow treated better than fat people who don't do the right things, right? And you hear a lot like, well, I'm okay with fat people who take care of themselves, but fat people who don't. And this is ridiculous on every level, because you could divide any group of people into these two categories, right? Well, I'm okay with redheads who take care of themselves, but redheads who don't, like I'm just not. Or tall people, I'm okay with tall people who take care. And so what it is people want to, engage in fat phobia, and they use this health thing as a justification for it. And so I always want to be really clear that nobody's obligated to participate in fitness or, to eat a certain way. And those of us who do are not better or worse than anyone else, right? You run a marathon on Sunday, you watch a Netflix marathon on Sunday, you have done morally comparable things. Both are a totally reasonable way to spend a Sunday. A fat-phobic society tells us that because we're fat, we can't go live the lives we want to live, whatever that is. And my message is like, do the thing, like whatever the thing is. I spent so much of my life waiting for a thin body to show up, with my whole life on hold, right? I was going to start just as soon as I lost 10, 20, 30, 50 pounds, whatever it was. And then I was going to go do all the things. And instead, what I finally decided was, I'm going to stop waiting for a thin body to show up, and I'm going to take my fat body out for a spin. I'm going to see what it can do. And I'm going to do the things I want to do in the body that I have. And if I'm blocked by that, by a fat phobic society, I'm going to figure out how to go over or around or through that. And I'm going to remember that it's not my fault, even though it becomes my problem. But I'm going to try my best to do the thing and to live the life that I want to live in a fat body.
This is Carrie from BodyWisePerfectSize.com, and here's where you can find Ragen at danceswithfat.wordpress.com. For more other wonderful interviews, go to BodyWisePerfectSize HayesVideos.com.